I think that personalization stuff, is pretty cool. Also, shout out to California schools in the NCAA. We're big fans of the Cali teams over at In Play Live for a whole bunch of reasons. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, the only sports betting podcast purifying the sports betting industry. On today's show, we've got the founder of Rithmm, an analytics modeling tool. We'll get into the future of predictive sports technology, a really, really cool conversation there. We have this huge report out on the state of global sports betting and how the market is growing, and getting limited without even signing up. A little funny story here. I'm your host, Shane Mercer. That guy over there, Andrew Pace, the founder of In Play Live, the greatest sports betting community on planet Earth. We'll have that story from some of those community members in just a moment. But first, I got to remind everyone to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at In Play Live. And if you want to see what In Play Live is all about on the inside, we've got that promo code for you, Behind the Lines, all caps. All right, Pace, why don't we start off with that? We had at least one of our members, but I think it was several community members who got limited on a sports book without even signing up. All right, that's sports book. I know, imagine this, right? You haven't even signed up for the book. You don't have an account, and they're already sending out this email. We are writing to let you know that the betting limits on your Fanatics sportsbook account, an account which doesn't exist, have been reduced, and you have been removed from certain promotions. These actions were taken by the risk and trading team as part of our ongoing review of customer accounts. All right, Pace, you got to explain this to me. How are these guys getting limited? They don't have accounts. And yet somehow, this is Fanatics, by the way, Fanatics Sportsbook, is sending these emails out to them saying, hey, guess what? You're limited. Your account's been limited. You may not have an account. It doesn't matter. Don't sign up. We don't want your business. Don't come here.
Yeah, so Fanatics purchased PointsBet, and
Right.
That's actually a story I don't think we covered on this podcast, because I feel like when anything that involves PointsBet, you just almost kind of laugh like immediately. You're just like,
Yeah.
really? Great book, right? Like, love PointsBet for the guys that got to use it because it was easy money while it lasted for the people that had it. But once Fanatics acquired PointsBet, they just went through their database of players that had been limited on PointsBet and emailed them all saying they'd be limited on their Fanatics account when they hadn't even made one. And just watching, like, we were on a live stream inside of our community when this happened, and then someone was like, I've been limited on Fanatics and never made an account. And then people started laughing, obviously, but then, one after the other, people started saying the same thing. So wherever Fanatics is going to operate, I don't know if that's New Jersey or wherever it is. All of our basically all of our members got limited without making an account. So it's all you can do is laugh. It's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I guess, just something to be aware of as we sort of cover some of these mergers, these takeovers, these acquisitions. These are things that can happen. So if you've been limited on the sports book somewhere else and you find out that's, another company's buying it, hey, just be prepared that you might not get those limits. You might not even get an opportunity to open a new account.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, on that topic of things moving and shaking in the world of the sports betting industry, a massive report has just come out this week. And so this is from researchandmarkets.com. It's called the Global Online Sports Betting Market Report 2024. And so this is a massive report, 280 pages. I don't expect all of you out there listening and watching to go and read this report, but just something to be aware of. And if you are interested in kind of diving into the macroeconomics of this industry that we all partake in, then it's out there for you, and you can read a little bit of it, some of it, all of it, none of it, all up to you. But I want to sort of highlight some key points from it. And as part of that, the numbers are just sort of enormous. And so I kind of want to just show a little bit of the graph that they have, the little sort of image that here. So check this out. The global online sports betting market forecast to grow. All right. So they are predicting the forecast for this year, 2024, is that the global market will be worth $34.95 billion. Okay. Huge number for this year. But that number in the next 5 years, by 2029, expected to grow to $70.63 billion. It's going to double over the next 5 years. Pretty amazing stuff there in terms of just the sheer size and volume of this sports betting, specifically online sports betting market around the world. So some of what's fueling that, some of the things that may not come as a surprise here, but more people have access to high-speed internet, more mobile betting services, and of course, people just love sports. Right? Nothing new there. And that's actually referenced in the sort of summary of this report, is how much people love sports. I mean, of course we do. We all do, right? It's something that brings us all together. But there's a couple of other things that I wanted to highlight from this report that I think are kind of areas of maybe perhaps, they're both positive and negative, or, kind of double-edged sword here. So here's one of them. Changing societal attitudes towards online gambling contributes to a broader acceptance of sports betting as a form of entertainment. As stigma decreases, more individuals are likely to participate in online sports betting. So the stigma is going away. And of course, we're seeing that as we sort of see different jurisdictions, regulate or create regulated markets and more of a move towards legalization in a lot of jurisdictions here in North America. And then another side of this, on the flexibility side, they say they often include features such as live streaming, live in-play betting, and push notifications for real-time updates. These enhancements contribute to a more engaging and enjoyable user experience. Mobile apps can leverage new technologies such as augmented reality and virtual reality to enhance the immersive nature of sports betting. These technologies can provide users with unique and interactive experiences, contributing to the overall appeal of mobile sports betting. All right, so I'm going to share some thoughts quickly, Pace, and then I'll get your take on all of this. But right off the bat, the idea of decreasing the stigma around sports betting, I think on the surface is absolutely great. Especially when we're engaged in this on a regular basis, and guys like you and I and many members of the community are having conversations with our friends and loved ones about what it is that we're doing when we're focused on sports and sports betting and kind of sort of locked in, so to speak. But I guess I'm concerned about downplaying the potentially harmful effects of sports betting. And that's something that I think the books want, obviously, but I think it's something that's kind of easy to sort of brush under the rug, because we do know that it can be very harmful, especially when not treated with a certain level of respect and caution. I think that kind of needs to go with it. And on the technology side of things, while I think it's great to be able to bet anywhere, anytime in a way that fits into sort of any kind of flexible lifestyle, to me, that kind of encourages also reckless sports betting, especially for problem gamblers. And I'm also concerned about the immersive technologies like Apple Vision Pro, which I know some of our members are already experimenting with a little bit and kind of getting familiar with. But I'm worried about that potentially making something like sports betting even more isolating, which I think could be a problem for people that aren't part of a community like In Play Live. You slap on those goggles and now you're, sort of locked into this virtual environment where you're betting on sports all by yourself. I think that could lead to some problems for some people. So anyway, what are your thoughts though when we kind of talk about these trends?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's really interesting. I think the first thing is the growth that you're referencing. So 2024 expecting 35 billion. And then doubling that by 2029. That's ambitious. I think a lot of people that are betting in general are doing it already, kind of thing. I know that with the younger generations, so people that are kind of just entering or recently entered the legalization sort of age, it's something that they get excited for, and I think that we weren't in that same time frame necessarily, Shane. I know we've been betting for a while, but when you think about turning 19 or in Canada or 21 in the States and you have your first like legal beverage, it's kind of a big moment. And I think that, there's definitely, making your first legal sports bet is becoming a thing for sure. 60 Minutes did a documentary on what was going on in the industry. I think they missed the mark in a big way. One of the things that they brought up kind of countlessly was the vast amount of markets that sports books have and how that's such a bad thing. And they didn't really have a pro in there that understands the industry to explain what the upside could be for some of those things. But they more so described it in a way of, if you are a problem gambler, going from kind of what you touched on, Shane, like this love of sports, where you go, who doesn't love sports? It brings us together. Those are things that you just said. So taking that approach, then entering the betting arena, and then eventually, betting on sports that you're not even watching or know any of the players or what's going on, because now you're just gambling, and basically documenting someone's journey of doing exactly that. And it's crazy. So the comments under like the shortened reel versions of these on social media are like, it's a guy who needs to stop gambling and has gone to rehab, and he's interviewed in the documentary. And the comments are unbelievable below. It isn't like, hey man, good job stepping away. Everyone's like, you're one parlay away from getting it all back. Stopping is quitting, like all that kind of stuff. And that is that younger generation's culture right now associated with betting as a whole. So the whole basically approach to it is you keep going and you keep pushing until you get that big win. That's kind of the approach. And if I'm the sports books and I'm seeing, that information, and then parlaying that with some of the points that you just made, you watch this 60-minute documentary and you're thinking they're trying to create awareness, and then look at what this generation's doing for us. They're advertising and pushing this guy to get back into the game. Yeah, it's not great. From the standpoint of mobile devices, so if you think about that comment in general, like, how long have we had these things for now? Like 2008, 2009. They're
Yeah,
more
since the
capable,
smartphone, yeah.
right?
The
So like they're
iPhone,
more
yeah.
capable now than they were before. But at the end of the day, like, I could easily load up a website on my phone or an app on my phone, 10, 15 years ago. So new mobile devices making it easier to sports bet, I don't really think that's a thing. With things like the Vision Pro or any what do you call them, headset,
Yeah, VR, augmented
VR,
reality, one of
sure,
those, yeah.
sure. Any sort of goggles or whatever. They like, so I got the Quest when it came out, and I remember I did like this National Geographic video game thing, and it was such a cool experience. Like, it was such a cool experience. Like, I really enjoyed it. And then I was like, this is ridiculous, because I'm the kind of person that I want to enjoy that with someone else. And if you think about mobile devices from that standpoint, where you go, okay, think of a Super Bowl party. You got all your friends coming into the room, and people are making bets amidst each other and filling out prop sheets. And yes, maybe there's some online betting happening as well, but it's a party with food and snacks and a social atmosphere. And of course, the Super Bowl does a great job of drawing in fans that aren't necessarily even watching the game, because they're there for the halftime show or whatever the case may be. That's a very social, fun sporting experience, right? And then if you go, okay, now we're all in our virtual headsets, it is extremely isolating. And that speaks against a lot of the points that you're talking about of what makes the sporting world a positive one, right? So I think, as a general statement, the industry growing makes total sense to me. There's certain states that aren't legalized yet. But we are getting notices of acquisitions and certain books shutting down, and starting to see the markets regulate itself to an extent. I'm not referencing the things that we would like to see from the market, but uh, the big players emerging, and some of them falling off, and things just kind of settling down to a certain extent. You're going to have to hit a point with a lot of these people where they'll either hit rock bottom, or they'll realize, like, I have to stop losing money, and they'll have to make a change in their life. So this culture that exists, like, keep pushing for the next big parlay, all that kind of stuff, I just don't know how long that's gonna hang around. I really don't.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's it can be very destructive for some people. Now, the other side of this, though, as we see this growth, it's pretty wild to think that a whole industry could double in 5 years. But I guess the other side of this, though, Pace, is that I feel very uh, grateful and optimistic for the future when I think about what I've learned being a part of the community at InPlay Live over the course of the last 18 plus months or so since I first joined, and we've been doing this podcast now for just over a year. We just celebrated 50 episodes last week, by the way, which we didn't even make a big deal about. Maybe we should have, but we're here. Here we are rolling along. But now I feel so equipped with the tools and knowledge that I need to go and carve out my slice of that pie. And as that pie keeps growing, I feel like I've got what I need to keep on chipping away and carving away and just grabbing my little portion of that as it continues to grow. So I'm whether that's as a sports bettor or perhaps somebody who's just operating in the space as a whole, I just keep learning and growing and sort of accumulating that knowledge and those tools to succeed in this space, which I think is highly valuable for me and
right,
for anyone
Shane,
else.
Sorry, I was just going to cut you off. I just zoomed in on that graphic that you put up on the screen, and there's like a really tiny sliver at the bottom that says Shane. So that's awesome.
Yeah. You've got a much bigger sliver too there. I think the Pace's sliver is like that compared to mine, which is probably like that. But
you know what though, Shane, in all seriousness though, you bring up some good points, right? And I think that one of the things at InPlay Live that is extremely positive, and this is speaking to some former members actually, because I know that there are a couple guys at least that essentially what they have done is come into our community, had a certain level of success, and then almost graduated. And I don't mean that in a way where like they're bigger than us necessarily, but I'll give you one example, like a guy who made $500,000 and then he took 100,000 of that and invested it into pregame modeling, and basically reduced his time commitment and has now like a 1 to 2% edge, so less than what we were doing, but is able to deploy large bet sizes, and he'll attest to InPlay Live as the reason why he got there. So then the flip side is current members that are well into the seven figures that are working with us in some capacity, whether it's just getting some information about what's going on in the industry here and there, or someone that's completely hands-on, that's following us day to day and all that kind of stuff. The whole idea is exactly what you just said. It's to help you make more informed, responsible decisions. It's to equip you with the tools to succeed over the long term. And that isn't always something that's easy, and it's something that no one should ever take for granted. It takes hard work. It takes discipline. It takes continuously evolving with what's going on in the world of sports and obviously the landscape of betting as a whole. And once you look at it with all those angles, it really helps you manage a tough run, because sometimes when you hear about a betting group like this, you can think that it's just all sunshine and rainbows, right? So it equips you to handle a challenging run and recognize what the upsides of some of those difficult times are, so that you can have a piece of that little Shane sliver in that $70 billion profit model there. So that's really the whole idea.
Yeah, exactly. And with that growth in the industry comes a lot of other players out there too that are looking to provide tools or educational resources, or sort of try to change the game a little bit. We've had the founder of an exchange on the show, and I think we'll be talking a little bit more about exchanges in the next few weeks as well. But we're sort of seeing some of these other types of players enter the space that are focused on providing sports bettors with a more level playing field, helping them to make more informed decisions. And so we're sort of seeing, I think, that evolution in the landscape as well, in terms of people out there genuinely trying to help people succeed in the space and or create a more level playing field. So with that growth is also coming that positive side of things, which I think is fantastic. And one of those people also joining us for an interesting conversation about what they're doing with technology and artificial intelligence. That is Brian Beachkofski from Rithmm. Pace, you and I had a chance to talk to him. Pretty interesting conversation. And so why don't we play that now for all of you out there at the audience? Here is Brian Beachkofski. Brian Beachkofski, Chief Technology Officer at Rithmm. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. This should be fun.
Really excited to have you here. Give us a sense of what is Rithmm? How did it start? I think you're one of the founders. Give us the origin story behind this company.
Yeah, for sure. So, where Rithmm started from is I actually met with my co-founder at a mutual friend's birthday party, and she was saying how as she moved on from coaching and wanted to stay involved in basketball, was moving into some sports betting, and said, how do we get the modeling function more available, because it's only for sharps and people who have the time to sit around and make their own quantitative models. Do they have that available? My background is a quantitative modeling guy, so I said, I think we can work on this together. Did some work on our own nights and weekends, put together a first version that showed that the modeling was working, and the higher we said you had a win probability, the more often you win. The whole concept, though, is to bring that idea of sports modeling and data analysis to people who it's been too complicated. They don't have the time or the technical background to do it. So what Rithmm does is it offers users the ability to make a personalized model very easily. Or if they don't want to personalize it, it can say make a model for me, and it goes through, and our AI will make a model for you. And then as soon as you do that, it gives you what the model says against every open line that is available, and tells you what side and what your model's deviation from market lines are.
Okay, so let me get my head around this idea of make a model for me. So we ask the technology, which is I guess heavily founded in artificial intelligence, and I say, hey, I want a model for hockey, and it goes ahead and creates a model. But what are the parameters of the model? How does that
That's
work?
right. Okay, cool. So what we do is start off by saying, what sport do you want to build your model for? And we have a house model that is built. And what you're saying when you build it in particular is what are the parts of the game that you want to influence. So we break it down to 5 factors, and we have lots of stats inside each one of those factors. But let's take, for example, for college basketball, we have offense. Offense are a bunch of stats that are tied to your ability to maintain possession. So it's offensive rebounding, it's assists, it's things like that come together. So when you say that's more important, what we're doing is we train your particular model where games where that was the deciding factor of how the model predicted the winner were most important. So when you can personalize your model to do that. And let me give an example of why you would want to do that. So for me, the way I use it, I have some that are like for college basketball, again, really high tempo, high shooting kind of models. And we have others that I have another one that's more defense and control. So then I look and I say, okay, for this game, do I think it's going to be more determined by who can play the more controlled game, or is it going to be wide open? And I'll go with that model. So that's the idea is you can make these models that reflect different game states or different hypotheses, and then you can see how those different predictions align based on what you know about the qualitative nature of the game. One other thing that people do is take those different models, and when they both point in the same direction, or we let users have up to 3 individual models, if those all point in the same direction, they say, well, this means even if it plays out differently, it's a robust prediction to be on that side. So people use it a lot of different ways, whether it's if it plays out this way or that way, or if the different models all agree, that's where I have the most confidence. But that's the idea of having a personalization. Is to be able to have these different predictions and to bring your own instincts about what matters most into your predictive model.
Really, really interesting there. Our audience made up of all different types of bettors, some recreational, some longtime professionals, and a whole lot of people somewhere in between there. But at In Play Live, we mainly focus on live betting. So once the game is already started, and when I was looking at your site, it seems like it is sort of heavily focused on the pregame side. Do you do anything on the live side? How could we create live models or models that would be applied, to a live game?
Yeah, so we currently don't do live model predictions because of the limitations in data. So when we make a model, we're taking 3 years, maybe even more for some sports, of data of how the pregame stats were compared to the outcome of that particular game. And that's just more accessible for us to get into a true in-game model. What we would need to do is have more of what those in-play game states would be, as well as the live odds, and to use that same process to combine them. So our first iteration was just pre-game odds, but would love to get into some live betting there as well. And I've actually started those conversations with some data providers that have historical in-game lines that we could combine with our play-by-play data to be able to pull that back together. So that's definitely where we want to get to.
That, I think that would be pretty cool. I mean, to see something, live modeling. I don't know anyone else out there that's doing that. But I do know that there are a lot of other companies out there that are sort of using artificial intelligence to do these kinds of sort of predictions and probability, and sort of provide that kind of analysis based on mounds and mounds and mounds of data. I guess, how do you use artificial intelligence differently than sort of the rest of the field, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that we've seen out there in the space is a lot of times the way people are using AI right now is for pattern matching and trying to build models around historical sequences or historical patterns and how that comes together. The big difference we have from the way those are working is not looking at like arbitrage opportunities, bad lines. But what we're doing is saying you can originate yourself. So this is one that a lot of our users like to do too, because they have the model that will make a prediction as soon as the stats are updated and there's an available line. Is they can hit the overnights, or they can hit the morning odds that haven't been as sharp, or haven't gone through the process to become more sharp, and can have an opinion early on. The other thing that we've noticed a lot is I like telling the story of one night I realized I was deep into our product because it was like midnight here on the East Coast, and I'm watching a Cal State Northridge UC Irvine game, right? Like, I would never have an opinion on those kinds of games, but winning on those pay as much as the Super Bowl pays, right? So being able to have an opinion that you can start with and then go and do some qualitative research and get there, it opens up the attack surface you can have against the books as well. So I think that's kind of where we differentiate, is being able to do that personalization that most people don't. They hit the pattern matching, they hit like, how do we aggregate large amounts of bet information, public money kind of stuff come together. But that personalization side and being able to originate is a big difference we have.
I think that personalization stuff, is pretty cool. Also, shout out to California schools in the NCAA. We're big fans of the Cali teams over at Play Live for a whole bunch of reasons. But yeah, shout out to UC Davis and Cal Poly and the rest of those guys out there.
Absolutely.
Pace, do you think you could see yourself? You don't do a lot of pregame, and whenever I ask you about pregame stuff, you're always like, "Dude, I bet live." But do you see yourself ever perhaps maybe using modeling in any kind of pregame way?
Sure. I mean, what does Justin Bieber teach us, right? Never say never. Yeah, I think more what the intrigue for me is, and I mean, it's the whole, obviously the whole world we live in is a cat and mouse game of who's making the next move against the books, and what are we doing to do it, and then of course their reactions and what they're doing to counter that back, right? And I just think the role of AI in general is a massive one in this industry, and the closer that we connect as a community to as much data and information in that space that can continue to benefit us long term, the better. So do I see myself using AI models to bet pregame? Potentially within the community, yes. Myself personally, I like to just watch live from a non-bias standpoint. I find that if you are making a big pregame bet, you do tend to have that in the back of your mind as you're looking at live lines. And I know that one of the hardest things to do as a sports bettor, and I think one of the single greatest traps that recreational bettors face, is getting away from that bias. And you know, I've seen firsthand, it can be an NFL Sunday, you know, where you got a bunch of friends in the room where, you know, there's no way the Colts are losing today kind of thing. And, you know, before you know it, you find yourself betting plus 10.5, plus 20.5, plus 30.5, and the game's just a total runaway game. And you couldn't get away from that bias. So, yeah, the AI conversation is really exciting. It's one that I think, you know, we're going to continue to be a part of on this podcast and in the community. And from a pregame betting standpoint, all I really care about is are you getting an edge, and are you making money long term? And if that's the answer, then there's an amazing spot for all of this in the industry as a whole. It's, what is it doing? Is it helping sports bettors, or is it making them worse sports bettors? I think it's probably having people make more informed, responsible decisions that are data backed, that are model backed. And also, what's really cool about this particular case that you brought up there, Brian, that I find kind of intriguing is I like that it is a user-based experience where the user is the one that is building out what it is that is or is not working for them, and then tweaking that over time. That process of involving the client, the customer, and them owning the models that they've built, and them being, you know, the ultimate decision maker in that is really cool. And it's special because then it isn't you know, some tipster just throwing out some trash, that whether they're good or not, ultimately was someone else giving the user that advice, as opposed to the user being the person that put that time, energy, and effort in to hopefully become more successful.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, one of the things I love saying is we are a tool, not a tout. It is one piece of information that you need to bring in, but also combine that with the qualitative stuff. I've used the pre-game for live betting, where if I look and I see a game, but like variance just happens to be going the other way, like people are missing shots they should have, but they're getting those open looks, being able to combine that together with the data that say, hey, this is probably going to change directions. But that being able to combine the quantitative analytical basis for the decision with the rest of the information that's out there is critically important. The other thing that you touched on that I love, and we've been very intentional about building in, is to say we want people to track bets within the app, right? Like, everyone should be tracking their bets and their performance. We think it's extra important because as you go through with your models, you'll say, hey, this one is actually not very good at totals, but it's crushing it on spreads and sides, right? Like, so being able to be disciplined about the tracking will show you whether or not it's working for you. And if it's not working for you, try something new, right? Like that's exactly what you need to be doing. So yeah, the more we can incorporate those best practices to just be easy for the user, so they know where it's going and what's working for them, we're just always pushing forward on that.
Well, the thing is about a lot of the points that you just made, like I can kind of tell you firsthand, like, you know, a lot of those sort of things that you touched on are things that we'll harp on in our community. But what you quickly realize is that you aren't speaking to the betting industry. You're just not. You're speaking to, you know, maybe 5% of the industry, but I think probably closer to 1%. And you're speaking to a really unique person. And sometimes the person that you're speaking to might not actually be from the betting industry at all. They might be someone that's actually more of an investing background or a trading background. And that's where the understanding of this kind of stuff, you know, like asking someone to track their wagers, it just seems so like elementary to say to someone, you know, from the trading side of things. Whereas in the betting space, you know, we don't have those tools readily given to us by the sports books where you're like, hey, I'm going to check my my Bet365 betting history, and they're going to show me all the trends of my wagers and how I've done over the course of time. Like, you know, you're never going to get that. So what does that mean? It means that we need to do it ourselves, or we need to use a third party, but it's still going to require that extra effort, which again, I think that almost eliminates 95% of the betting industry as a whole. And yeah, when it comes to like responsible gambling and the tools that we have, they're not offering us AI tools to help beat them, right? So, you know, it's an industry where you really have to take ownership of your success, regardless if it's a great tipster you're following or, you know, you building your own predictive models using AI. through a third party service, like you have to own the solution. You have to be someone that puts in that work separately in order to succeed. So yeah, it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of things to help people do that, which is great to hear.
Definitely what we're trying to get to. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I want to ask though, because okay, so big shout out to tracking. I'm a huge proponent of tracking. Pace has heard me talk about how much I enjoy tracking, and I have an also almost like an OCD type of compulsion now to track, which I think is very healthy. Given that if you're somebody who struggles with mental health issues and that kind of thing, and then maybe there's some issues around that. I'm not, and but I do have this compulsion now to track, and I very much return to my tracker on a regular basis to analyze it to sort of figure out what I'm going to do going forward. But when I hear, you talk about sort of, hey, yeah, you can just go ahead and build your own predictive, AI model, based, through us. It sounds like very daunting, for an average recreational bettor. It sounds like this kind of thing, like, whoa, do I have the qualifications for this? No, I'm not a math whiz. I don't know that much about, artificial intelligence or technology, maybe for that matter. If I'm somebody like that, is it as daunting as it sounds? Do I need to have a background in, probabilities and data analysis?
That's a great question, and one of our big learnings. We thought the universe of people who would be more interested on the going directly into making the models and doing the advanced stuff was going to be larger than it was. So about a month and a half ago now, we made a big pivot to create a more easy on-ramp for folks that were hitting that first wall of trying to make a model and not knowing exactly where to go, or seeing back test results and not knowing, is this good or bad, or what does that look like? So now if you're a new user with none of that background, you can come in and just hit with one click, make the model for me. And it will make the model. It'll show you the backtest results. It'll allow you to do some of the tracking and all that you need to, but keep it very, very simple. And then we have other tiers where you can go up and be a core user, where you get a little bit more ability to make your own model if you want to, and choose those factors that are more important. And then we have a premium level, and we have people who are deep into the numbers at the premium level, where we let them go through their download all their TrackBet data, synchronize it if they're doing it somewhere else, being able to split that out and like look and say, okay, when I'm this far off market, I have a win rate. If I'm further off market, where things go. And actually build their own factors, so they can pick individual stats and make their own model essentially from scratch within there. Ultimately, I'd love it to get to a no-code model building approach where you can pick everything.
I want to return back to something though, back to the live modeling and that thing, that whole topic. I want to go back to that because you sort of mentioned that there's a little bit of challenges and barriers to it, but you're looking to tackle those. What are they? And I guess, what would your sort of idea of it look like in the future?
Yeah. So the basic approach we use right now for pregame, I think could hold a bit of a path forward on how we get there. And what we do currently is we take all the team statistics for what the teams have done up to that point pregame, and then look at both teams, how those match up, and use that as input into the game. Combining that with what the odds are to say, okay, does your model have it above or below market odds on that? We would need that same approach for in-game, right? So given a given pregame estimate, and then conditional on the observed statistics within the game and the current in-game live odds, where do we think it's gonna end up going? And that would be the approach I would use, is have it be a conditional. I'm a Bayesian if it hasn't come through, but say we have a prior, our pregame is basically our prior, and then we have a certain amount of observations within the game that we update on a basis, and just say, is our update put it on one side or the other of the live odds?
Huh. I would very much look forward to sort of seeing something like that, and I don't think there's much out there that looks like that. Very, very cool product. Want to thank you, Brian, for coming on the show and sort of sharing this this with us, and sort of letting us know what you guys are working on over there at Rithmm. So again, thanks so much, and good luck to you as you sort of try to expand in this space.
Thank you so much for having a great conversation. Appreciate it.
All right, so that's Rithmm. Pretty interesting piece of technology. I have played around with the site a little bit myself, and I can attest to the one pick that I really tuned into before we were lining it up, and I should have brought it up with Brian, but we got well into a whole bunch of other things as you just heard. But I did go and take a look at sort of one of the picks, that was being provided for free on the site. It was the Memphis-Milwaukee game from last week, just before the NBA All-Star break. It showed something like Memphis had a 16% chance to win the game, but the implied odds were something like 7-1, providing an edge of about 15%, I think it was. And hey, guess what? Memphis won that game. I didn't place the bet.
That was the G League game.
Yeah,
that
it almost turned into that. Yeah.
And Doc Rivers said like the whole team was out in Cabo or something like that. Like
Yep.
it was an NBA team playing like a G League team, and Memphis pulled it out.
Yeah. So kudos to the team at Rithmm for identifying that right before the NBA All-Star break. But Pace, what do you think about the technology that they're developing there?
Well, I think that there's something to be said, because we started this episode about the future of the industry from the standpoint of like market size and profit and things like that. Well, what is really important for anyone to understand in this space is how lines move with action always being a way to create an edge. Is it this massive edge all the time? No. But when you have technology that can help identify some of those patterns, it can take a lot of the strenuous guesswork or heavy time commitments. I don't want to say take it out of the equation, but reduce it in the equation. So when it comes to AI specifically, we're kind of at the start of it all. And that this industry is one that will be heavily impacted by it if it hasn't already been, and it has. So, I think that as long as we continue to have dynamic lines, as long as we continue to have games where the public thinks a certain way and sharp money then balances that, there will be opportunities, of course, to profit in the world of sports. And we talk about this all the time, like real responsible gaming tools, where there's also tools that can help you win in a whole series of different ways. So I don't have experience, obviously, with this product specifically, but as a general statement, that would kind of be, where I stand with it all. And if those tools can help you win some money and make some better wagers, again, you have to go click that bet. You have to go decide how much you're going to wager. You have to deal with money management. You have to decide if you're going to add a little, free money, air quotes there for people that are not watching, a little free money parlay on the edge of it, right? Like those are your decisions, not the AI tools decisions. So, it's great as long as you're using all of it in a responsible fashion.
I think you touched on a key thing there. There's this AI technology is absolutely going to be more impactful in I think many facets of our lives, but heavily in the sports betting realm. Especially when we talk about trying to sort of make projections or predictions about future outcomes and what probabilities might be. I mean, that is a space for AI to thrive, but at the end of the day, it's humans out there playing the game, right? It's humans out there coaching other humans to try and win a game, or it's always going to come down to this human element that I think an AI or any kind of technology just can't influence or have an impact on. And especially when we talk about what we do, betting live, it's going to be very difficult for any kind of piece of technology to understand what humans are actually doing in the moment. And I think that's always going to be something that will always be able to kind of have an edge over the machines when it comes to trying to forecast or look at what a probable outcome or what a human is likely to do.
Exactly. There's historic data to make predictions on theoretical value, and then there's actual chaos and what's happening on on the rink, the court, or the field, right? So it's been proven that chaos is unpredictable. So you can an AI model won't usually do a prediction based on one simulation. It'll be tens of thousands, if not millions, of simulations to come up with the most probable outcomes or value based on that. But which one of those millions are going to come into play and how it happens is an infinite probability. So
yeah, exactly. But I did think it was interesting, and that's why I kind of pushed him a little bit on it. The idea of live modeling or having models, kind of adapt to a live scenario, I think would just be a really cool sort of tool to have on the side, while engaged in live sports betting. It would be, I think it would be pretty cool. At least something to kind of just provide a little bit of an assist, right? You're not going to base all of your decisions on it, just like you would in any other piece of technology or platform. But to have that little extra knowledge sitting there, kind of helping you make a more informed decision. I mean, what's the downside of that, right? Yeah. All right. Well, very cool interview there with Brian Beachkofski from Rithmm. We look forward to bringing you many more voices from within this ever expanding and growing sports betting industry. Very, optimistic about the future and what's in store for the sports betting world. So much kind of happening at such a fast pace, and it's just super exciting. So stay tuned. Remember to like, download, subscribe. Follow us on all the socials at InPlayLive. Big shout out to OddsJam, which was brought up in the interview there earlier, and we are continuing to use over the course of the college basketball season, which we are ever slowly approaching March, and then the middle of the month when we get into the madness, which is something that I know I'm always excited for, and Pace, I know you are too. So please stay with us throughout the next few weeks. We're going to be bringing you a lot more people and interviews and talking about all of the topics in the sports betting industry that matter to you, sports bettors who are trying to become better bettors. All right, Pace. Till next week, buddy. Keep beating those books.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.